Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja. And for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in London, Julia Chapman.
Thanks, Tanvi. Coming up, Gabon's ousted president is freed from house arrest. 17 Ukrainians are killed in a Russian strike. And Mexico decriminalizes abortion. But first, the headlines.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres commends ASEAN for its role in building bridges of understanding, but also warns of the fragmenting global finance systems.
There is a real risk of fragmentation, of a great fracture in world economic and financial systems.
At the ASEAN-India summit in Jakarta, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi declares the 21st century to be a century of Asia. Apple stocks take a beating on Wall Street after China reportedly bans its government officials from using iPhones. In a sweeping decision, Mexico's Supreme Court decriminalizes abortion nationwide after years of activism by women and feminist organizations. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday successfully concluded his short but fruitful Jakarta visit, where the 43rd ASEAN Summit is underway. He attended the ASEAN-India Summit this morning, where he called ASEAN the central pillar of India's Act East policy. Two joint statements, one on maritime cooperation and the other on food security, were adopted. Earlier, on his arrival in Indonesia, the Indian Prime Minister was received to a rousing welcome by the Indian diaspora there. DD India correspondent Vishal Baristo reports.
And chants of Modi, Modi. The Indian diaspora has been waiting for hours to greet their national hero.
Could see him so near and we were so proud.
It was indeed a very proud moment for we Indians to see our Prime Minister in Jakarta.
It's like a dream come true.
Prime Minister moved to the Jakarta Convention Center to attend the ASEAN-India Summit. PM Modi was accompanied by the Indian Foreign Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and the National Security Advisor. At the summit, Prime Minister Modi made some interesting observations on the 4-decade relations with ASEAN.
पिछले वर्ष हमने भारत आसियान फ्रेंडशिप ईयर मनाया और आपसी संबंधों को एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप का रूप दिया। आज वैश्विक अनिश्चितताओं के माहौल में भी हर क्षेत्र में हमारे आपसी सहयोग में लगातार प्रगति हो रही है। यह हमारे संबंधों की ताकत और रेजिलियंस का प्रमाण है।
Prime Minister said that we need to have a rule-based world order where everybody has to exist and there should be peaceful coexistence.
आसियान मैटर्स क्योंकि यहाँ सभी की आवाज सुनी जाती है और आसियान इज एपिसेंट्रम ऑफ ग्रोथ क्योंकि वैश्विक विकास में आसियान क्षेत्र की अहम भूमिका है। वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर की यही भावना भारत की G20 अध्यक्षता की भी थीम है।
Speaking about the G20 summit in Delhi, Modi said that the theme itself talks about inclusive development of one earth, one family, one future. While the leaders continued with the ASEAN East Asia Summit, the United Nations General Secretary held a press conference at the Jakarta Convention Center. Antonio Guterres asked for a better cooperation in taking on the challenge of geopolitical crisis. Guterres also lauded India's initiative in raising the voice of Global South at the G20. Vishal Baristo's report for DT India.
Thereafter, Prime Minister Modi attended the 18th East Asia Summit. In his address, the Prime Minister underlined India's support for ASEAN centrality and called for ensuring a free, open and rules-based Indo-Pacific. The Indian Prime Minister highlighted synergies of visions for Indo-Pacific between India and ASEAN and underscored that ASEAN is the focal point of Quad's vision. Prime Minister Modi also called for a cooperative approach to address global challenges, including that of terrorism, climate change and resilient supply chains for essential items, including food and medicines, and for energy security. He highlighted India's steps in the area of climate change. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi wraps up his visit to Indonesia, Secretary, Indian External Affairs Ministry Saurabh Kumar said India and ASEAN will make a forum to further strengthen the digital infrastructure. He also announced opening of an embassy in Timor-Leste.
Prime Minister announced the formation of an ASEAN-India Fund for Digital Future. This would provide financial connectivity between ASEAN and India. Prime Minister also announced support for IRIA, which is a ASEAN think tank, which would be our knowledge partner to further deepen ASEAN-India relations. Opening of the Embassy of India in Timor-Leste has also been announced by the Prime Minister. Timor-Leste, as you know, is an observer in the ASEAN.
So as the ASEAN summit in Indonesia concludes on Thursday, global leaders held a series of meetings on Thursday to discuss security and trade. ASEAN leaders adopted the Jakarta Declaration, or the ASEAN Concord IV. The leaders strengthened their commitment to enhance ASEAN community building efforts to make ASEAN a community that matters to its people and remains the epicentrum of growth. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said that his country is committed to deepening comprehensive strategic partnership with Southeast Asia. Prime Minister Albanese's remarks came at the third ASEAN-Australia Summit in Jakarta on Thursday. The regional forum and Australia now look forward to convening the ASEAN-Australia Special Summit in Melbourne next year in March. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres has raised concern that there is a risk of a major fracture in the global economic and financial systems. Addressing the ASEAN UN Summit today, the UN chief has called on world leaders to find peaceful and inclusive solutions to the global challenges. Guterres further expressed concern over the worsening political and humanitarian situation in Myanmar. He's called on the Myanmar's junta to release political prisoners. Myanmar has been besieged by war since the 2021 military coup.
There is a real risk of fragmentation, of a great fracture in world economic and financial systems, with diverging strategies on technology and artificial intelligence and conflicting security frameworks. I commend ASEAN and ASEAN member states for their vital role in building bridges of understanding.
On to Africa now. Gabon's ousted president, Ali Bongo, was granted freedom of movement by the military junta there. Further north in Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu's presidential win was upheld by an election tribunal. My colleague Julia Chapman is in London. She gives us more on the developments in the African continent and other stories making it to the headlines around the world. Let's go over to Julia now. Julia, it's over to you.
Gabon's ousted president, Ali Bongo, has been released from house arrest. The military leaders of the country, who carried out a coup last month, have said Bongo is free to move about and pursue medical treatment abroad. This comes after the junta in Gabon was facing international pressure over Bongo's detention. Ali Bongo was overthrown by his presidential guards in August, and coup leader General Brice Nguma was sworn in as the interim president on Monday. Nigeria's election tribunal has upheld President Bola Tinubu's victory in the presidential polls. The tribunal rejected a petition by opposition parties challenging President Tinubu's victory in the February vote, alleging that there had been irregularities. In the political history of Nigeria, no legal challenge to the presidential election results has been successful. Depleted uranium anti-tank shells are part of a new military aid package to Ukraine announced by the US. Secretary of State Antony Blinken unveiled a further $1 billion in assistance during his fourth trip to Kyiv since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. The package brings American security support for Ukraine to more than $43 billion in the past year and a half. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked the United States for its continued help as the war with Russia drags on.
Thank you so much. We are really thankful to you. We are very thankful to White House, to President Biden. Please best regard to him from me. And we are thankful to bipartisan support to Congress, that you show great unity around Ukraine.
Russian officials say 5 Ukrainian drones were shot down in 3 regions of the country overnight. It comes after 17 people were killed and over 30 injured in an explosion in a busy market in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kostiantynivka. President Zelensky has blamed Russia for the attack, which took place on Wednesday during Secretary Blinken's visit to Kyiv. Moscow is yet to comment on the attack. A U.S. judge has rejected former President Donald Trump's bid to delay his trial next month in a $250 million civil fraud case. The court said the former president's request was without merit. Trump and his family, who are accused of overvaluing assets, had asked the New York State judge to stay the case for 3 weeks. Donald Trump faces several other major legal charges, including 4 separate criminal cases. In a landmark decision, Mexico's Supreme Court has now decriminalized abortion nationwide. The new ruling legalizes abortion across all 32 states in Mexico. The judgment comes 2 years after the court had ruled in favor of a challenge to the existing law in a state in northern Mexico. This judgment is a sharp contrast to the situation in the neighboring United States, where a Supreme Court ruling in 2022 overturned the landmark decision guaranteeing the right to abortion. That's it from me here in London. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Julia. Julia Chapman joining me from our London bureau. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. Manhunt for convicted killer enters 8th day with details beginning to emerge about how he managed to escape from the Pennsylvania prison. And big no to Apple's iPhones and other foreign branded devices in China.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Leaders from around the world are heading to New Delhi for the G20 summit on September 9th and 10th. Grand arrangements are in place to host the heads of states and their delegations in the national capital. The summit will take place at the Bharat Mandapam, which is a brand new state-of-the-art convention center. Delhi Lieutenant Governor Vinay Kumar Saxena visited several places in New Delhi to check on the arrangements ahead of the G20 summit. Mauritius Prime Minister Praveen Jugnauth arrived in New Delhi on Thursday morning for the G20 summit. He received a warm reception at the Delhi airport upon his arrival. Ahead of the summit, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has penned down his thoughts for the same. In an article in a leading Indian daily, the Prime Minister wrote, and I quote him here, "Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam." These two words capture a deep philosophy. The phrase means the world is one family. This is an all-embracing outlook that encourages us to progress as one universal family, transcending borders, languages, and ideologies. During India's G20 presidency, this has translated into a call for human-centric progress. As one Earth, we are coming together to nurture our planet. As one family, we support each other in the pursuit of growth, and we move together towards a shared future, one future which is an undeniable truth in these interconnected times. These are Prime Minister's words in an article in a leading daily today. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi has lauded the record participation in a G20 Jan Bhagidari, that's public participation event, an initiative of Ministry of Education. Over 5 crore individuals, including students, teachers and community members, have enthusiastically joined this initiative so far. The Ministry of Education organized this Jan Bhagidari public participation events across the country in the run-up to the G20's 4th Education Working Group meeting in Pune. These events will create awareness and generate a sense of pride among various stakeholders about the G20. Now, one of the biggest discussions in the G20 build-up is the finance track, where economists and finance ministers attempt to solve shared economic problems. DD India correspondent Ajay Mishra looks at these areas they have focused on.
When India took over the G20 presidency last year in Bali, there were huge challenges before the global economy. The global economy was trying to recover from the COVID pandemic. The Russia-Ukraine crisis put a brake on the pace of the global development. Despite these challenges, India took the tremendous leadership and trying to make the consensus on many global economic issues. Let us understand what are the major outcomes out of this very crucial finance track meeting under India G20 presidency.
Let us now understand which priorities of finance track have got support of G20 member countries. Top of the agenda, a discussion on danger of inflation and rising interest rates, a problem for many countries. G20 members also supported the idea of regulation of cryptocurrencies. Countries in Africa, Asia and Latin America expressed interest in India's digital public infrastructure. G20 host India formed an expert committee on reforms in institutions like IMF, World Bank and WTO.
India tried to build consensus on many pressing economic issues via several dialogues, workshops and many meetings of the engagement groups under finance track. India was considered as a champion of using digital public infrastructure for the good of its citizens. It was also recognized as an important voice of Global South. With camera person Radhakrishnan Tiwari, Ajay Mishra, DD India, New Delhi.
Imagine if you could put a question to the world leaders gathering for the G20 summit here in New Delhi. What would that question be? We sent our correspondents out to ask people exactly that, to see what they think are the key issues that need tackling.
Saving the planet comes first. I'd ask the G20 leaders what they will do about it, because we can't go on like this. At the same time, we need the economy. We need people in the developing countries to live well and improve living standards. So it's up to them to think about what we can do in each country.
I think what Uganda and Africa need is trade justice. It's trade justice. We don't need free things. We don't need freebies. I would want Uganda to be free to sell our processed coffee in Germany, in Britain, without non-tariff barriers.
I actually have a message for all of the leaders attending the G20, and that is to invest in quality education to improve literacy. We need to see investments if we're going to achieve quality education by 2030. Because literacy lays the groundwork for building a sustainable society, a peaceful society.
I would tell them to give more job opportunities to students, because most of them finish their degrees, and in every job they look for, they're asked for 1, 2, or 3 years of experience that they don't have, because nobody gives them a chance.
And now let's go to the venue where the main G20 Leaders Summit will be held. And Meghna Dev is joining us from the Bharat Mandapam there. Meghna, the roads of the national capital are adorned with plants, lights, billboards, and the traffic movement around central Delhi has already slowed down. What more can you tell us?
Yes, exactly, Tanvi. The traffic movement has slowed down quite a bit because they know, from tonight onwards, there is going to be a complete curfew in this area. Everything will be streamlined. There's, in a sense, we can say a complete lockdown here to ensure that there is a smooth movement, especially in the area around Pragati Maidan, so that, there is a smooth movement, swift movement of carcades of the leaders, the delegates who will be arriving for the G20 summit at the Bharat Mandapam. I'm here at the venue, Bharat Mandapam, which will be the epicenter of global attention once, the leaders start arriving here for the summit on 9th and 10th of September. I will keep you with the visuals because, we can show you that the last minute preparations are underway. Everything is being put into place. Everything is being actually checked, managed. We have been seeing personnel here since early morning who have been at work, ensuring that nothing nothing skips their eye, and they are actually perfectly prepared for the summit and to host the world leaders here. Right behind me, you just saw the Nataraj statue, which is made of Ashtadhatu. Now, this statue is 27 feet tall and also weighs around 18 tons. So, this statue took about 7 months to be made. So, that definitely, here, actually, we can see this statue basically also, increasing the beauty, we can say, of this Bharat Mandapam, outside the Bharat Mandapam. And when we are talking about Bharat Mandapam, for that matter, a huge, infrastructure it is. For when we're talking about conference tourism, it is going to be one of the most, it is one of the most renowned now, places when we're talking about conference tourism in terms of capacity, in terms of infrastructure, and definitely not only this, but outside Pragati Maidan also we see the streets in Delhi adorned with lights and a lot of greenery, fountains and whatnot. So definitely, as India is known for its hospitality and the mantra of Atithi Devo Bhava, India is geared up, especially obviously New Delhi is geared up for the summit, and we can see that the last moment preparations are underway before the leaders arrive in some hours from now.
Thank you, Meghna Dev. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. In the United States, authorities have stepped up the hunt for a convicted murderer who escaped from jail. Danielo Cavalcante, who is from Brazil, scaled a wall a week ago, taking the same route as another man who climbed out of the same jail earlier this year. 34-year-old Cavalcante was sentenced to life in prison for murder. Pennsylvania State Police say he is considered dangerous. Drug maker Pfizer is reporting success in countering the new COVID-19 variant BA.2.86. Pfizer is producing updated vaccines which have shown strong antibody responses in preclinical trials. The new variant has been detected in several countries, including Switzerland, South Africa, Israel, Denmark, the United States and Britain. A missing 2-year-old boy in Oklahoma has been found safe after the car he was in was stolen. A suspect has been identified but continues to remain at large. Peru President Dina Boluarte has carried out her second cabinet reshuffle in an 8-month-old administration with changes in key ministries including education, justice, transport and agrarian development. The new ministers were sworn in at the government palace in Peru's capital, Lima. The stock prices of Apple witnessed a drop of nearly 2.62%, marking its most significant single-day loss in a month. This decline came in response to reports that China, one of Apple's major markets, had prohibited government workers from using iPhones or getting them to office. These instructions were reportedly conveyed via chat groups and meetings at all government workplaces in China. It is, however, unclear as to how widespread these orders are. Meanwhile, this alleged ban coincides with an upcoming Apple event launching a new line of iPhones, further escalating tensions between China and the US. And otherwise, Asian stocks performed lower on Thursday after negative trends in global markets. The strengthening of the US dollar against major Asian currencies further extended the impact. So Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index plunged 1.3%, while China's Shanghai Composite Index was down by 1.1%, and Japan's Nikkei 225 Index also was down by 0.8%. Oil prices dropped on Thursday due to concerns about lower demand during the winter season and uncertainties about China's economy. Brent crude fell 36 cents a barrel, while US crude fell 37 cents a barrel early Thursday morning after a 9-session winning streak. So with that, it's a wrap in DD India Global today. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube at DD India Live. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.